Welcome to the Daily History Podcast. In today's episode, The Sinking of the Lusitania, a catalyst for World War I, we unpack a pivotal moment in 20th century history that would forever change the course of international relations and warfare. Join us as we delve deep into the events surrounding the tragic sinking of the RMS Lusitania and how it propelled the United States into a global conflict. At the dawn of the 20th century, human ingenuity once again reached new heights with the construction of the RMS Lusitania. A titan of the seas, she stood not just as a ship, but as a symbol of the technological advancements and bold spirit of progress defining the age. Launched on June 7, 1906, and operated by the Cunard Line, the Lusitania was heralded as a marvel of maritime engineering. Towering above the waves at an impressive length of nearly 800 feet, and with a gross tonnage of 31,550, this ocean liner was a floating testament to human achievement. Her powerful turbines, a feat of mechanical artistry, allowed her to cross the Atlantic with unprecedented speed, making her maiden voyage from Liverpool to New York in September 1907. The Lusitania not only set the golden standard for travel comfort, but also signified a new era of luxury ocean travel that captivated the hearts and imaginations of people across the globe. The ship's interiors were astonishing, rivaling the grandeur of the finest hotels. Passengers could bask in the elegance of opulent staterooms, exquisite dining salons, and grand ballrooms, all while cutting across the waves at speeds that seemed to defy the vastness of the ocean itself. The Lusitania also played a pivotal role in cargo transport, offering new possibilities for international trade and commerce. As she gracefully navigated the waters between the Old World and the New, she represented the shrinking of the globe, a world newly connected by the threads of voyages traversing the deep blue. As the 20th century dawned, Europe was a continent of burgeoning empires and alliances, a precarious balance of power poised on a knife edge. Dominating the landscape were the great powers: Britain with its vast navy, Germany flaunting its industrial might, and the Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and Ottoman empires, each clinging to their spheres of influence. The era was defined by an arms race and a complex web of treaties, nations entangled in a dance of diplomacy and militarization, the stage set for the outbreak of a conflict with global implications. Into this charged atmosphere, Germany introduced a strategy that would alter the course of naval warfare: unrestricted submarine warfare. Championed by the Imperial German Navy, this policy pushed the boundaries of traditional combat, where merchant and civilian vessels had previously been regarded as off-limits. German U-boats, fearsome predators of the deep, began patrolling the North Atlantic, ready to enforce a lethal blockade against the British Isles. They sought not only to cut off supplies to Britain, but also to erode the morale of its citizens and military. In this context, the Lusitania set sail, an unwitting emblem of the innocence about to be shattered by the harsh realities of modern war. The year was 1915, and the waters around Britain had become a submerged battlefield, invisible lines drawn where German U-boats hunted with chilling efficiency. The sinking of ships, whether carrying cargo or souls, became a grim testament to the deadliness of this new approach to warfare. It was a game of stealth and survival that brought the ocean's uncertainty onto the doorsteps of nations, and in its wake, it sowed the seeds of American involvement. For as the Lusitania neared its fate, the world watched, waited, and wondered. A single torpedo was about to launch America towards war. It was the morning of May 1st, 1915, when the RMS Lusitania, a towering leviathan of the sea, bid farewell to the port of New York, embarking on what would become its final crossing to Liverpool. Crowds lined the docks, waving to loved ones on board, unaware of the somber twist of fate that awaited. With Captain William Turner at the helm, a man of sterling reputation and decades at sea, the Lusitania was a bastion of progress, a testament to human ingenuity. Below decks, a microcosm of society bustled: third-class families seeking new lives overseas, second-class travelers in pursuit of adventure, and first-class passengers enveloped in luxury. each with their own story, their own dreams, steaming ahead into the perilous waters of the Atlantic. Unseen, yet a whisper among the conversations of those aboard, was the shadow of danger cast by the threat of German U-boats. The ocean, once a vast expanse of opportunity, had transformed into a chessboard of unseen adversaries. The war had rendered seas into battlegrounds, and the Lusitania, despite its civilian nature, was not immune to the silent hunters lurking beneath the waves. Passengers might have shrugged off the danger, comforted by the speed of their vessel, believed to be too swift for any lurking menace. Yet, the War of Nations cares little for the illusions of safety. The Lusitania continued its majestic voyage, steaming closer to a confrontation that would shake the fabric of history, its passengers unknowing players in a looming tragedy. As the Lusitania cut through the Atlantic swell, mortal peril traveled beneath the surface, etching a path towards destiny. In days to come, the echoes of a sunken dream would resonate across continents, a prelude to turmoil yet unseen. The ship, mankind's marvel, and the sea, nature's domain, were on course for a fatal rendezvous, a reminder that in the grand tale of history, human stories are often penned with the invisible ink of uncertainty. May 7th, 1915, started as any other day aboard the RMS Lusitania, a ship considered the epitome of maritime luxury and technological prowess of its time. But as history promptly recorded, this day would end in an unparalleled tragedy. The looming presence of the German U-boat, U-20, under the command of Kapitänleutnant Walther Schwieger, turned the North Atlantic into a stage for one of the most harrowing attacks of the First World War. The U-20 had been patrolling the Irish Sea for targets as part of Germany's ruthless policy of unrestricted submarine warfare, and that fateful afternoon, the Lusitania entered its sights. At 2:10 p.m., a torpedo tore through the hull of the majestic ocean liner with terrifying precision, followed by a much larger internal explosion, the cause of which remains a topic of strenuous debate to this day. Passengers and crew alike were thrown into pandemonium as the ship began to list dramatically, signaling the grave reality that the Lusitania was not unsinkable as once claimed. In a mere 18 minutes, the vessel plunged into the depths, taking with it the lives of 1,198 people, both civilians and military personnel, including women and children. The catastrophic loss of life reverberated around the world, as did questions about the nature of the cargo the Lusitania was carrying. Rumors swirled that among the passengers' baggage were munitions and arms, contributing to the secondary explosion post-torpedo strike and challenging the notion of the Lusitania as an innocent civilian vessel. The German government defended the attack by claiming the Lusitania was a legitimate military target, assertions that only fueled the controversy and outrage, particularly among the Allied powers. These events would not only mark one of the darkest pages of the First World War, but also serve as a turning point in the global perception of conflict. The heart-wrenching stories of survivors and victims underscored the dire consequences of warfare, reaching beyond the battlefield and into the lives of unsuspecting individuals seeking passage across the Atlantic. The sinking of the Lusitania remains, over a century later, a poignant reminder of the fragile line between civilian life and wartime acts, a memory etched deep in the annals of maritime history. The sinking of the RMS Lusitania rippled through the international community with profound effects. News of the disaster on the 7th of May, 1915, spread swiftly, reaching eager ears across continents. In the immediate aftermath, nations around the world grappled with the reality of civilian lives lost to the ruthless tactics of war. Nowhere were these ripples felt more acutely than in the United States. The country, which had firmly clung to neutrality in these early years of the First World War, found its resolve shaken. Reports flooded in, detailing the nearly 1,200 souls who perished, among them 128 Americans. Pervasive media coverage and graphic depictions of the tragedy galvanized public opinion, stoking the fires of collective outrage and mourning. The incident promptly confronted President Woodrow Wilson with an unprecedented diplomatic challenge. Caught between a commitment to peace and the growing clamor for action against Germany, Wilson's administration faced increasing pressure. Meanwhile, on the home front, newspapers and community leaders wielded their influence, shaping discourse that berated the German act as barbaric and inhumane. This pivotal shift in public sentiment laid the groundwork for a reevaluation of the United States' foreign policy. Debates raged in the halls of Congress and spilled out onto the streets as calls for intervention gained momentum. In town halls and city squares, the voices of isolationists clashed with those demanding justice for the lives lost. This discourse set in motion a gradual but irreversible path toward American engagement in the World War. The U.S. government, while initially clinging to diplomatic channels, began to harden its stance. Over time, the sinking of the Lusitania became a symbol of the perils of inaction, prompting Wilson to demand accountability and respect for neutral rights on the seas. This steadily eroded the tenuous hold of neutrality, and together with subsequent events, edged America closer to the battlefields of Europe. The Lusitania's tragedy thus served as a catalyst, transforming the American ethos from one of detached observation to one of compelling moral imperative. The story of the ship and its passengers did not end at the bottom of the Atlantic. It lived on, reverberating through the consciousness of a nation and ultimately shaped the course of history. As the waves of the Atlantic quietly murmured a grave lullaby, a somber realization dawned upon the world. The RMS Lusitania was more than just a casualty of war. It symbolized a pivotal alteration in naval warfare and the principles that would govern it henceforth. The haunting echoes of the deep resonated far beyond the ocean's embrace, transforming views on the conduct of war at sea. The international outcry following the Lusitania's demise saw a surge in demands for clearer rules of engagement. Amidst the heated discourse, concepts such as cruiser rules came under scrutiny as nations grappled with the morality of targeting civilian vessels. Submarine warfare, though revolutionary in its strategic advantage, now carried a weight of opprobrium given the scale of civilian casualties unseen in prior conflicts. In retrospect, the Lusitania's sinking on May 7, 1915, became a touchstone for change. The tragedy served as a catalyst, inspiring a codification of laws that aimed to protect neutral ships and non-combatants from the horrors of war. These events also compelled the world's mightiest nations to pause and reflect on the dire consequences of modern warfare, leading to subsequent international agreements aimed at establishing what we would come to know as the rules of war. Yet, perhaps more significant than the transformations in maritime law was the sinking's influence on the United States and its position on the global stage. Until the Lusitania's fateful journey, the U.S. had watched the war from across the ocean with a stance of staunch neutrality. But as American lives were lost to the depths alongside the ill-fated ship, the public sentiment shifted rapidly from watchful distance to a cry for action. The Lusitania tragedy expedited the U.S.'s departure from isolation and hastened its entry into the First World War. By April of 1917, provoked by the unrestricted submarine warfare and the call to defend the rights of neutral nations, the U.S. officially declared war on Germany. The reverberations of the Lusitania's sinking were felt deeply, setting off a chain of events that would ultimately draw the United States into the heart of European conflict. In wrapping up our reflection on the RMS Lusitania, we are left to ponder the indelible mark it left on history. As a symbol and as a sobering lesson, the ship's legacy reaches beyond its tragic end to the very fabric of 20th century warfare and diplomacy. It reminds us that even in the darkest depths, there can emerge a beacon leading toward greater humanity in the conduct of nations. And with that, we honor the memory of the lives lost and the lessons learned, echoing through time long after the initial ripples faded into the solemn stillness of the deep. Thank you for tuning in to the Daily History Podcast. If this deep dive into the waters of history has sparked your curiosity or moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and suggest a topic for our next episode. The suggestion with the most likes will take us on our next historical journey together. Until next time, keep exploring the depths of our past, and thank you for being part of today's historical exploration.